well, I say it's taken because if you're fraudulently giving money, you've taken it.
Okay,
You've
but that's an allegation of fraud.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a serious...
Now on this program, I'm trying to stay with the fact that it is an averment in the process you're reading.
Oh, yes. I mean, every legal
is important
document until the judge says... But I'm saying what
But you are saying that he has fraudulently...
No.
And
I'm saying that
is to prove that he has done so.
The Attorney General here did not write alleged.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying, that what the Attorney General said was the defendant colluded with Waterville.
Oh, yes, of course. But you are a lawyer.
Yes.
You know that in presenting a paper like that, you will not say allegedly.
Exactly. That's what I'm reading to the people of Ghana, so that they understand that in this case, he says, listen to this.
Yes.
The plaintiff could not detect the fraudulent nature of the misrepresentations because blah, blah, blah. Then he says, the plaintiff has now discovered new and more documents.
Okay.
When we were telling the NDC government that these documents existed, some people said we were doing politics. But this is a very serious issue. And the name smacks of something that happened in America, in the United States of America, called the Watergate scandal. So now when we have Woyomegate, we try to draw the parallels. In the Watergate, the president tried to use a different committee or commission to find out what was going on. The people of America said, no, we would rather have it done this way. Because that way,
you mean?
Yes, the executive cannot be involved in the process. It led to the impeachment of the president.
And we remember Nixon and
some people have even started saying that the president himself, via his omission, if that's the case, or negligence, himself is implicated in the matter because his chief of staff was copied with, he was given a copy of the letter about the payment. And yet the president is telling us that he doesn't know anything about it. Fine, that might be a good excuse, but it's not a justifiable reason for an omission in something that he ought to have done or he ought to have known. In that case, he becomes culpable. This is a simple legal language that even young lawyers like us sitting here know. So I know that a law professor knows that by his omission, he's negligent. And these are very serious accusations to pay not a general expenditure, but specific expenditure of over 50 million Ghana cedis. This is very worrying.
Samson, as I listened to Victor, and particularly the question that Mike asked him, and the point he made that, well, 17 million paid, the rest stayed, and then somehow the figure seems to have risen to 58 or thereabouts, because we don't seem to, we have different figures being thrown at us on a consistent basis. And of course, out of the documents that Mike was reading, I also have a copy before me, we actually have the government has lost the sum of 51, and then we've also had 58 in some news articles and news items.
And 92.
And 92 actually did pop up at some stage and all of that. Really, where are we?
Okay.
What's the amount in question?
I would like to be careful, and then I'd rather prefer to err on the side of the Attorney General. That I'd like to go with what the Attorney General says is the money that has been paid, because I suppose that this matter has gone on long enough for the Attorney General to have done all that he had to do, so he would have been diligent enough to be sure that the amount that he was quoting was the right amount, over 51 million Ghana cedis. I suspect that when the minority in Parliament refers to 58 million, they add the cost and all that went into it. But also, you cannot fault them, can you? Because that is what the Auditor General captured in his audit. You see, he captured that in his audit.
But there's also
so you couldn't fault them.
The Auditor General.
The Auditor General has simply
consistency.
There's a certain misunderstanding and misinterpretation.
It's important
for
that you
certain
clarify
purposes.
that for us.
The release that was issued by the Auditor General, I got a copy.
Okay.
He said simply that for anyone to state or to seek to tell the public that a total of 58 million Ghana cedis was paid to Alfred Agbesi Woyome in 2010, that person is wrong. The correct position is to say that in 2010, a total of 17 million Ghana cedis was paid to him. that is not the same as, or that does not mean that the total amount that he was due at that time was not paid him. Because as we speak, the 2011 audit has not been conducted. So if you read from the Attorney General also, you then discover that a total of 51 million Ghana cedis has been paid to Alfred Agbesi Woyome in respect of this matter. Now, there was one thing I needed to point out that my senior was referring to. He was referring to the paragraph where the Attorney General was now seeking to particularize his claim of fraud.
Which is a requirement.
Exactly, it's a requirement in law. If you state fraud, if you want to claim to fraud, you must particularize it. And then he sought to particularize it and come to the conclusion. With your permission, I'd like to read this. He says that on the 4th of May, 2005, the then Deputy Minister of Finance signed a letter of introduction which was given to the defendant, in which it was stated that the government of Ghana did not bear responsibility for any liabilities that will arise from the transactions. Subsequently, following a change in government, the defendant, that is Alfred Woyome, knowing the contents of the 4th May 2005 letter and the disclaimer in the said letter, knowingly and fraudulently misrepresented to the Attorney General that he was entitled to his claim.
Okay.
So the argument has gone on for a long time now, and you must have heard some people read certain documentation and correspondence in which they begin to link where Alfred Agbesi Woyome came into the whole matter to now begin to assert some claim that he was owed the 2% of the over 1 billion euro.
My question to you is that if he made those statements, and as the Attorney General says, those statements were untrue and he knew them to be untrue,
were misrepresented, they were fraudulent.
Yes, and he knew at the time he was making those statements. What did the Attorney General at the time do about it when he made those statements to that Attorney General?
Okay.
Was anything required to show the veracity or otherwise of his claim, if he indeed made that claim?
By the processes so far, you would discover that when that claim was made, the Attorney General has stated that she was under a mistaken belief that we were liable. She was under a mistaken belief. And now, having discovered this, is seeking to say that I was under a mistaken belief, but now I have these facts before me, and I am very sure that we didn't have any contracts. If we had a contract, it was of an international transactional nature. It ought to have gone to Parliament for approval. That was not done. And since that was not done per Article 1815, then you have been trying to put something on nothing. It will not stand. All that has gone on so far was procured by fraud. All of that must fall as a nullity, and Alfred Woyome must be made to refund. I think the caveat, most important, that we need to post in the whole of the discussion is that, like you were trying to point out to my senior, is that this is the averment of the Attorney General. He believes that these represents the cornerstone of his claim that will result in Alfred Woyome having to refund the monies. But Alfred Woyome's lawyers also say, we have not been served with these yet, and we are undaunted. We are waiting to be served, and we can assure you that we will prove our case in court. So it is important to clarify that these are the averments of the Attorney General. The attorneys of Alfred Woyome are also ready to show how they believe that Alfred Woyome did not do anything fraudulently, that he did not make any misrepresentations, and that he duly, indeed, and in fact, was owed 2% of the project engineering finance that he was able, according to them, to procure for Ghana, which was over 1 billion euros, out of which he was due 2%, and the 2% of which would have amounted to over 100 million Ghana cedis. But he decided to settle with that Attorney General and to tell them that, you know what, just pay about half of it. So it is also very possible that in court, the Attorney General might not be successful.
Interesting, and that's an important point to state, because really, if this had been served on Alfred Woyome's lawyers, and they had also filed a response and were reading it, exactly. The words in there will also be directly opposite this, and somebody could also go on that and make it sound different.
But it is also true that Alfred Woyome himself has stated before the public, the entire Ghanaian public, that he, as an individual, never had a contract with government, but that he's been claiming that he led a consortium, which is made up of Vamed and is it Watergate? Now, the Attorney General is saying that even if Vamed had a contract, even if Waterville had a contract, those contracts were of an international transactional nature. They ought to have received the blessing of the Parliament of Ghana. They did not. By virtue of that, they are null and void. And he actually said they are void ab initio. That is, they never existed. It's going to be a difficult game.
Mike, was there a contract? And was it, if there was, of an international nature?
First of all, it is very important for me to just find this document here to add to this, to just point a very important aspect out. You see, my brother was a bit charitable to the Attorney General and said previously the Attorney General may have been of the mistaken belief. May have.
No, actually, he said the Attorney General at the time said she
of the mistaken belief. Belief.
Okay, so he was quoting her. Actually.
There could not have been any mistaken belief. In a letter written, and I'll mention a name that we will all shudder as lawyers. Kwame Tete.
I know the name I'm going to mention.
Kwame Tete is basically a pillar, a big boy.
He taught me civil procedure
in our legal circles. No joker. Serious big man. Lawyer for Waterville. He wrote a letter. He says, Waterville did engage Power Park, that's Woyome, to provide financial engineering services. But the relationship was terminated by a termination agreement dated 25th November 2006. Listen to this. So even apart from the fact that he did not have a contract with Ghana, the people he says he's representing, they terminated the agreement with him in 2006. No leg to stand on, as my fellow lawyer
Yes, UAC against McFoy, Lord Denning's words.
Thank you very much.
All right.
So now, we must add that the stadia contracts were contracted between Waterville and Government of Ghana. Neither Power Park or Woyome was a party. It is therefore wrongful for Woyome or Power Park to make a claim in a contract of which neither is a party. This letter was written to the Honorable Attorney General in 2009. Dear Madam, so and so. Then let me tell you the worst part. It says in all of this that they should see a copy of the termination agreement. This is a copy of it. Attached. And just for the benefit of you, termination agreement between Waterville and Power Park. Okay? Then it says now, and it's a very short one, the parties agreed that the agreement signed in 2005 between the two of them will not continue and mutually agree to terminate it by signing the present document. Also, the parties agreed, listen now, that there are no fees payable now, and that in the future from one part to the other. And then signed.
Have you seen correspondences subsequent to this between, separately from Alfred Woyome, challenging Waterville's claim of monies that were due and owing to Waterville.
Yes. And the worst part is...
And then